Mortal Kombat 11 has a vast range of characters in its roster. It's a healthy mix of fighters that have been part of the series for the past few decades and brand new members from the latest generations of titles from the brilliant minds at NetherRealm Studios. And that's not even including any of the DLC characters that adorn the, as of 2023, complete Mortal Kombat 11 experience. Now, with that said, if you spend any amount of time with the game, be it in local matches or online bouts, you'll probably start to develop a taste for what characters you find fun to play with and against, and which ones you do not. Over the past 4 years of the game, the MK community has had plenty of time to dissect and understand how each of the characters in the roster plays out. Now, for all the mastery NRS has in developing fighting games, they have faced some issues of imbalances or just plain unfun game mechanics and opponents. But not all is lost, cause boring characters are not an objective constant. They can change, they can be balanced, tweaked, and then a lot of the time the underlying character that is shaped by those mechanics and kits can flourish into something more fun for a larger audience. Hi, I'm Chris, and in today's DashFight video, we want to tell you about some of the most boring and unfun characters in Mortal Kombat 11, including playing yourself or playing against. Our list is not in any particular order, and your mileage will vary with each of the characters, but after years, the Mortal Kombat community has found a general consensus. But before we jump into our first character, make sure to subscribe to DashFight's channel and click on the bell so you don't miss out on any of our videos in the future. Cetrion. We are really starting strong here for our first pick. From the very beginning of the game, Cetrion has widely been considered as one of the worst in recent franchise history. Now, Cetrion was supposed to be the first playable Elder God, a powerful being capable of reshaping the universe itself. Unfortunately though, it seems her move of choice is always just to clump things together and then throw them at her opponents. For many, she more so resembles a lower god, kinda like Raiden, whose abilities come from a higher power and are limited by it as well. It's possible that she would have been better received as a mini-boss, like some of the other godlike figures in the franchise, rather than a playable character from the start. Gameplay-wise, Cetrion is a very annoying puzzle box. She's by no means too powerful, but the set of abilities she possesses and the attention that's required to force her into a mistake is just too much for a lot of players, even in competitive settings. She is a zoner character, meaning that many of her abilities are centered around the idea of denying space for their opponents to move or reach. And she does this with many of her moves, including Boulder Bash, Natural Barrier, Hell's Wrath, and Windstorm, just to name a few. The fact that she has so many options to delay her opponent's approach can make it feel at times that she's very much in control all the time. The key point here is that many players don't like that. For a lot of people, the idea that you have to understand how all these options work just to be able to produce an effective counteroffensive is really overwhelming. So even for the highest of competitive players, this session has become a little bit of a meme. For the top end of players, it does make sense that you would need to understand all these options. To a certain extent, it can be very rewarding when you manage to completely read your opponent so that you can defend against those options effectively. But at the same time, the effort is not really required for the other characters, so why is it only Cetrion that forces you to have to put in so much work just to be able to counter her in 1v1? For Cetrion to be good in matchups, she needs to face low damage characters because the unfortunate truth of the matter is that she can't really deal with characters that avoid her projectiles, or can overcome the approach challenges of her teleporter. So essentially, Cetrion is a pain and a half, but if you're struggling against her right now, we actually have a guide here on our channel on how to best deal with her, made by top player Tekken Master. So make sure to check that out, along with all the other guides on MK11. Jacqui Briggs. Jacqui was first introduced to the series in Mortal Kombat X alongside many of the new generation characters like Cassie Cage and Takeda. And although many of these new characters were really well received by the community, Jacqui was front and center of many of the critiques. Story-wise, she's the daughter of Jacqui Briggs, and generally speaking, she fits in well within the Earthrealm cast of the series. Jacqui pursued the same military career as her father, although he was not at all on board with the idea, which is pretty understandable given just how much suffering Jax endured in the constant battle between mere mortals like him and godlike beings. Now in the comics, Jacqui does come off as a more fully formed character, but in the game, she's a bit stiffer and lacks a lot of the charisma that really pushes MK characters above just normal grunts. And then we come to her gameplay, which was not appealing to the wider fanbase at all. And although Mortal Kombat 11 did pull an almost complete redo and brought her up to the standard with the rest of the characters, she's still shrouded in the infamy of being a less than fun character to play. As to why she's no fun, well, it comes down to her having a way to break through her opponent's options and punish them for attempting to keep control of the fight. Jacqui's able to cut down distances quickly with her bionic leap, only to then present a challenge in the form of exactly what move she'll use to open up their match. Whether it might be a bionic bounce or an enhanced air blast, these moves have a lot of flexibility, and they lead to stronger combos down the line that output a lot of damage for her. Counterplay does exist, of course, but it often takes the shape of very boring strategies that require a player to stay very vigilant. For example, a common saying is that you shouldn't try throw tech, meaning cancel Jacqui's throw if it's in a forward one since it'll actually help you to be thrown forward depending on your character. While another is to just trust your reads against her instead of trying to make a response for all her moves, which, as I'm sure from just listening to it, you can tell it's not viable most of the time. Geras. And finally, another one of Kronika's allies, it's Geras, an immortal construct that appears to be made out of sand. Now, as far as the fanbase is concerned, his design and general characteristics are on point. He comes across as a powerful character that could very much kill you with ease. Plus, his status as an aide for Kronika and Cetrion also cements him as an antagonist worthy of defiance. That, however, is where the cool stops for most, as playing against Geras can feel a little bit like going to the beach and punching sand for 15 minutes. Now, this is because Geras, although considered balanced, has some of the most repeatable moves in the roster, and at least for new players, he can be quite the challenge to overcome. His keep away moveset has shades of Cetrion. Although tamed down, they still cause a lot of friction for his opponents since it can be quite tedious to inch your way closer to him, being careful to protect against his quick and shifting sands, and even if you manage to close the distance, there is still the distinct possibility that Geras will just use his 1-1-1 string into a grab. In truth, Geras, Jacqui, and Cetrion can be characterized as boring characters overall. That being said, for a game that has dozens of characters within its roster, getting a few misses here and there is not the end of the world. And besides, when strategies at the top level shift, sometimes boring characters will get a new lease on life and are given the opportunity to shine once again, or maybe for the first time. We'll keep our fingers crossed for Mortal Kombat 12. Anyway, that's all for us today. Make sure to subscribe and check out our other videos here on YouTube.